Hey, Sassy Steph, we're back with some locker room action between me, Molly, and Emma. Today we're going to be talking about some interesting bowl picks. Emma, tell us what's going on this week.
So Shane Beamer came out and said the SEC deserves automatic CFP bids, and people were not happy about that because of the SEC's disastrous bowl performances. I mean, Texas A&M lost to USC, Tennessee was blown out by Ohio State in the CFP, Alabama lost to a mediocre Michigan team. Granted, Michigan did beat Ohio State. Navy beat Oklahoma, Illinois beat South Carolina, Arizona State maybe should have beat Texas. Sorry, Molly. There was a little bit of controversy with the officiating, but they were in it against Texas. Notre Dame beat Georgia. Ohio State dominated Texas. So they were like, why should the SEC get auto bids for the playoffs? He says that the SEC is just different. He believes the SEC deserves playoff consideration regardless of losses. So what do you think about this?
I semi agree. Just when we're looking at the conference, the difference between the conferences, when you're looking at the Big Ten, you've got obviously Ohio State's a killer, but then you also have some other schools like Northwestern, and it's like they would have never made it to the playoffs. So when we're looking at the bigger picture, or even Pac-12, like those divisions have, or conferences have, a couple really good schools and then some not so great schools at all. And then when you're looking at the SEC, they do have some of the big dominated, like just amazing football teams. But to go in and say, well, the SEC is just different, so we just deserve six spots in the bowl picks. It's like, well, that's actually not fair, because maybe we dominate one year, and maybe, for God knows why, maybe Northwestern does come back next year and has a great year. We just really don't know. It depends on, we talk about this all the time, your strength of schedule, your coaching staff, transfer portal, NIL deals. There's a lot that goes into making a team good right now. So comparing that, no. Biasly, as an SEC fan, yeah, I think absolutely that would be great to have an automatic 10 spots, or however many spots we would get. But yeah, I'm like, how many should we get,
10
Shane?
out of 12.
Yeah, let's actually go for 11. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got Florida, you've got Georgia, you've got Bama, you've got Auburn, you've got Tennessee, you've got Texas, you've got Ole Miss. They had a great year.
Week to week, it's harder. You get some of the toughest players. And I mean, they're kind of split between the Big Ten and the SEC, but only those top maybe 3 to 4 teams in the Big Ten and those top maybe 2 to 3 teams in the ACC get the same caliber of players as the SEC. So when looking at it, I more so want to make the qualifications to make the playoffs different than get what Shane Beamer saying as automatic bids. I don't love the automatic bid idea, but when I'm looking at 4 Big Ten teams get in, and one of those teams being Indiana, who didn't beat anybody with a winning record, lost their only tough matchup, but had a strong record at the end of the day, which is what got them in, versus an Ole Miss or a South Carolina or an Alabama getting in, that's where I'm like, I think if you're going to put 4 Big Ten teams in, one being Indiana, who didn't beat anyone of merit, like Nick Saban says, let's look at who you beat a little bit more, then that's where I was like, okay, well, if you're going to put 4 of them in, then put 4 of the SEC in. So that would be what I would change. It can't just be based on record. And this year, it was mostly based on record. So adding in the strength of schedule and who you beat weighing a little bit heavier, maybe as equal to who you lost to. Because if you look at it, then Bama beat LSU in Death Valley. Maybe that negates the OU loss. Bama beat Georgia, who was supposed to, who won the SEC, so they beat the SEC champion. So you can negate Vanderbilt there, maybe. And then Tennessee, I mean, made the playoffs. So that was what you would call a good loss. So I think just changing the criteria to make the playoffs more so than giving these auto bids.
Yeah, I mean, we pay a lot of statisticians in this world, and I feel like you could probably pay somebody that's unbiased, that's not really, catering to a school, that really would look at look at the strength of schedule, look at the data, and I think there is a math way of choosing fairly who's getting a playoff spot versus just an automatic bid. Especially with strength of schedule. I think strength of schedule is so important when you're looking at, I mean, we talked about this even in the playoffs. The playoff schedule for some teams was ridiculously easy, and then for others, it wasn't. Like I said, I think there's somebody very, very smart that's a statistician somewhere that possibly could very well look at all of those things and factor all of those things into playoff spots. I don't think we should just automatically get spots, even though, my biased opinion is different.
It's called AI, it's called ChatGPT. It has 0 bias when it comes to college football.
And you have somehow hacked ChatGPT to make sure Bama has a spot every year.
Oh, yeah, that would be my first, priority, being like, "Bama's in. Bama's number 1. We lost 4 games, number 1 in the playoffs." I'll put Texas in at number 2 just for you.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Somewhere sprinkled in there. But, I mean, I just with Shane Beamer, I mean, he lost to Illinois in the Citrus Bowl. They needed a 4-point win over Old Dominion at home. They lost to LSU. They only scored 3 points and lost to Ole Miss. They lost to a 4 loss after Michigan, Alabama. So beating Clemson alone was not enough for CFP consideration. And I don't agree with the, yeah, just give them a spot. But I do think we have to change the way we pick the teams. And granted, this will be a problem of 16 teams in the playoffs later, and those 17, 18, 19 spots are all going to be angry. Everyone's going to be angry at the end of the day. But I think if we took some of, I don't know, the fan noise out of it, the bias out of it, and you really look at these teams and say who can perform in these games at the end of the day. Granted, everyone has a bad day. Everyone's going to get blown out. We saw what happened to Kansas City, supposed to be the best team. Granted, they had ref help. But they got blown out in the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, I just think picking the teams needs to change more so than giving people an auto. You go for it, buddy.
Well, Sassy Steph, you guys let us know your opinions down in the comments. We are eager to see, especially from our favorite Ohio State fans out there. Once again, my name is Molly. I was back with Emma today. Come back next week for some more locker room talk. I'm sure we'll have something juicy for you.